Picture this: a quiet Lake Michigan town, tourists, fishing boats, Friday night football, the kind of place where crime means a missing bike. Now imagine that same town turning into the center of one of the most advanced cartel operations ever uncovered in America. A port director secretly converts a peaceful harbor into a narcotics superhighway. Millions laundered through casinos. Teens dying from pills they thought were harmless. This isn't a movie. It happened. And the scariest part? It could happen anywhere. Today, I'm bringing you the full story, the money, the bodies, the federal takedown, and the question every American should be asking: how many other towns are already compromised? Welcome to Delta Tactical. This channel exposes the operations no one talks about, cartels hiding in plain sight, corruption turning quiet neighborhoods into battlegrounds, and the federal missions that reveal America's invisible drug war. If you want the truth unfiltered, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. She walked into work like any other government employee: coffee, badge, smile. For 4 years, no one knew she was quietly engineering the collapse of an entire region. This isn't just about drugs crossing borders. It's about how corruption builds empires in plain sight, and what happens when they finally fall. Every successful criminal network needs one thing: a builder. Someone who understands systems. Someone with access. Someone nobody would ever suspect. Dana Whitford was that person. In 2016, she became director of a small maritime facility on the shores of Lake Michigan. The harbor handled mostly tourist boats, fishing vessels, commercial shipping. Quiet. Predictable. Boring. Exactly what the Sinaloa cartel needed. The Sinaloa organization has developed highly sophisticated trafficking networks spanning multiple continents. But the coasts were saturated with enforcement. The southern border, heavily monitored. They needed new territory. Unexplored routes, the Great Lakes, became their next frontier. What made Whitford valuable was not just her position, but her patience. She didn't rush. She studied the infrastructure, learned every inspection protocol, identified every vulnerability. She became indispensable. Then she began her redesign. First came the scheduling changes. Subtle adjustments to when vessels could dock, when inspections occurred, which crews worked which shifts. Nothing dramatic enough to raise flags. Just small inefficiencies that created gaps. Those gaps became corridors. Next, she established what she called expedited clearance protocols for high-priority maritime traffic. It sounded reasonable. Professional, even. What it actually created was a fast lane where cartel shipments could bypass standard inspection procedures entirely. Some vessels were cleared in under 7 minutes. Standard protocol required hours. Then came the geography. For receiving zones around the bay. Remote areas where vessels could offload at night without oversight. She justified them as emergency moorage sites. Coast Guard logs would later show unusual vessel movements aligning perfectly with these locations. Nobody questioned it. By 2019, her infrastructure was complete. A customized pipeline stretching from Lake Michigan deep into the American Midwest. And the product began flowing. The drugs were just the beginning. The real genius was in the money. Casino-based money laundering has become increasingly sophisticated, with cartels using cash-intensive gaming establishments to disguise millions in drug revenue through structured transactions and complicit casino personnel. Whitford constructed a 3-tier financial system that would make corporate accountants jealous. Tier 1 moved cash from the port into 2 tribal casinos. Delivery fees, distribution payments, cartel revenue, all funneled through gaming establishments where large cash transactions look normal. Her associates used a technique called snowwashing. They would arrive late at night, purchase high-value chips using fake identities, play briefly, then cash out. The money appeared as legitimate gambling winnings, but the operation went deeper. Casino managers on Whitford's payroll routinely approved large chip conversions without proper documentation. Elderly regulars later recalled seeing the same unfamiliar faces, betting heavily, leaving quickly. Week after week. Always at night, investigators would eventually discover that one spreadsheet hidden in Whitford's office listed weekly intake at $4.7 million. Every 7 days. 4 years, Tier 2 moved cleaned casino money to Arizona and Wisconsin through accounts controlled by cartel financial couriers. From there, cryptocurrency platforms and remittance channels masked as business reimbursements pushed funds into Mexico. Modern underground banking networks have integrated cryptocurrency into casino-based money laundering, allowing digital assets to serve as intermediary value transfers. The beauty of this system was its cyclical nature. Tier 3 completed the loop when Sinaloa wired funds back to Whitford's shell companies. 37 consulting accounts with innocent-sounding names. Great Lakes Marine Advisors. North Shore Development. Harbor Efficiency Group. Each invoice mirrored the arrival of specific vessels. To anyone reviewing the books, it looked like legitimate maritime consulting. In reality, every transaction represented narcotics moving through American communities. Federal forensic accountants would ultimately estimate $163.4 million laundered through this casino route alone. But that figure only captured what they could definitively trace. The supporting network extended beyond gambling establishments. For casino managers facilitating the operation, 3 Coast Guard officers receiving $12,000 monthly to ensure smooth transit. 2 property developers leasing storage cabins that became distribution hubs. Each person received just enough money to stay quiet. Nobody realized they were building the economic engine of a cartel statelet. While money flowed through offshore accounts and casino chips, something else was flowing through northern Michigan. Destruction. Public health data revealed the timeline. Overdose reports across the region surged 310% over 3 years. Rural overdose rates have risen sharply, with some areas experiencing death rates 45% higher than urban centers, but numbers don't capture what was actually happening in these communities. Emergency medical teams began responding to overdoses in places they had never seen them before. Gas station bathrooms. Parking lots. Fishing docks. Places that represented the quiet, safe character of northern Michigan. The drugs weren't staying at the port. They were radiating outward through 27 small towns via a network of local distributors. Some were addicts themselves, desperate for product. Others were opportunists who saw easy money. All of them became microhubs, spreading methamphetamine, fentanyl, and counterfeit pills at unprecedented speed. DEA agents have seized enough fentanyl nationwide to kill over 380 million people, with 6 out of 10 counterfeit pills containing lethal amounts. Local dealers told undercover agents that the northern supply was so abundant they could undercut prices anywhere else in the state. Availability created demand. Demand created addiction. Addiction created devastation. 7 high schools spanning from Traverse City to Gaylord reported sudden waves of drug incidents. Teachers described hallways where lockers smelled of chemical residue. One educator told investigators that students became addicted before anyone understood what they had taken. Parents described the moment they realized their children were using. The personality changes. The declining grades. The lying. Then the overdoses. Some families lost children before they even knew there was a problem, but the crisis had another dimension that made everything worse. Northern Michigan was simultaneously experiencing an influx of rehabilitation inmates relocated from other counties. Many arrived without stable housing or support systems. Whitford's network exploited this vulnerable population ruthlessly. Newly released individuals were recruited as runners, decoys, cash couriers in the casino laundering cycle. Some were paid with product instead of money, fueling the explosion in addiction rates. Small businesses near highway corridors saw nightly activity they assumed was seasonal tourism. Lakefront vacation homes suddenly had strange visitors at odd hours. Nobody realized they were witnessing the logistics network of a cartel-controlled distribution zone. Law enforcement was overwhelmed. Sheriffs across northern Michigan reported record spikes in theft, roadside arrests, violent disputes. Rural areas face particularly severe challenges due to longer emergency response times. Officers were outnumbered, under-resourced, and critically, they had no idea the center of the storm was sitting inside the Port Authority office. The end came suddenly if federal agencies had been watching Whitford for months. Financial irregularities. Suspicious vessel clearances. Overdose patterns that align too perfectly with shipping schedules. When they finally had enough evidence, they moved fast. 3 in the morning. FBI and DHS agents opened a shipping container marked for expedited entry. Inside, 200 kilograms of fentanyl, 500 kilograms of methamphetamine, 62 kilograms of heroin. Enough to devastate entire populations. Hidden beside the narcotics was industrial GPS jamming equipment designed to make vessels disappear from Coast Guard tracking. Every crate bore the Sinaloa cartel seal. Within minutes, federal teams stormed Whitford's office. They found $2.3 million in cash packed into waterproof suitcases. 14 restricted access cards issued to unknown individuals. A loaded 9mm pistol. and documents detailing what appeared to be a fuel pipeline expansion but was actually a covert smuggling corridor. Operation Northern Breakwater launched at 2:30 that morning. 620 agents from FBI, DHS, and DEA surged toward 41 pre-identified locations across northern Michigan. What followed was the largest anti-cartel operation in state history. Warehouses breached with explosive charges. Gunfights lasting 14 minutes as tactical teams overwhelmed defenders. Coast Guard helicopters illuminating fleeing vessels on the bay. Roadblocks and spike strips stopping pickup trucks loaded with merchandise. By dawn, dozens were in custody and massive caches of narcotics, weapons, and maritime equipment were secured. In the days following the raids, federal analysts reconstructed the full scope of Whitford's empire. The picture that emerged was staggering. She had transformed a peaceful tourist harbor into a fully operational Sinaloa gateway. What looked like scattered criminal incidents were actually symptoms of a single hidden machine. A machine she had spent 4 years building with meticulous precision. The fallout rippled across Michigan within hours. Port employees who seemed harmless were revealed as gatekeepers placed strategically to suppress inspections. 3 Coast Guard personnel admitted receiving monthly payments. 4 casino supervisors confessed to approving illegal transactions. The Sinaloa cartel operates through decentralized networks with tens of thousands of members worldwide, supplying illicit drugs that drive violence across American communities in all 50 states. Whitford had become one node in that massive network. But her node had been strategically critical. The Great Lakes route she pioneered proved that cartels could infiltrate regions far from traditional border zones. Whitford herself was found 7 hours after the raids began, hiding in a rented cabin near Torch Lake. She did not resist arrest. Investigators noted she seemed almost relieved. Northern Michigan survived Operation Northern Breakwater. But the lessons extend far beyond one port, one director, one pipeline. Between 1999 and 2022, approximately 727,000 individuals lost their lives to opioid overdoses in the United States. Those deaths don't happen by accident. They happen because of infrastructure, supply chains, distribution networks, financial systems, and people in positions of trust who make it all possible. What happened in Michigan reveals an uncomfortable truth about modern drug trafficking. The cartels don't need to smuggle everything across the southern border anymore. They can build new routes through ports, airports, rail yards, anywhere there's a vulnerability and someone willing to exploit it. Whitford didn't build her empire overnight. She built it one unchecked decision at a time. One unreported shipment. One cleared vessel. One bribed officer. Small changes that seemed harmless until everything collapsed at once. That's the real danger. Corruption never arrives with sirens. It slips in quietly through signatures nobody questions and paperwork that looks routine. A single person in power weakened an entire region. A single system left unprotected became a weapon. And a single blind spot gave a cartel everything it needed to poison communities hundreds of miles from any border. The federal agencies who dismantled this network showed what's possible when resources, coordination, and determination align. But as investigators packed up evidence and filed reports, one question lingered: how many other ports across the Great Lakes might be vulnerable to similar infiltration? How many officials like Whitford hold enough authority to reshape entire regions without attracting attention? The answer keeps federal agents awake at night. Because if it happened once in northern Michigan, it can happen anywhere. The cartels are patient. They're strategic. And they're always looking for the next Dana Whitford. The only question is whether we'll see them coming. That's how one port director nearly handed an entire region to the Sinaloa cartel. The case is closed, the headlines are gone, but the vulnerabilities that made it possible are still wide open. And the cartels? They're already planning their next move. This is why Delta Tactical exists, to keep digging when everyone else moves on. To expose the patterns, the blind spots, the systems that let corruption grow in silence. If this investigation opened your eyes, here's what you can do. 1. Subscribe. Join a community that refuses to look away. 2. Hit like. It pushes this story to more people who need to see it. 3. Drop a comment. Could your port, casino, or city be the next weak link? 4. Share this video with anyone who thinks their town is immune, because no one really is. More investigations are coming. Hidden cartel ops, forgotten federal raids, the financial pipelines no one talks about. Stay alert. Stay informed. Corruption doesn't announce itself. It spreads quietly until it doesn't. See you in the next one.